Welcome back to the Rural Roundup. This show is produced in association with the Scottish Government. On today's episode, we're joined by Rebecca Mackie and Irene Scott, who are involved in the RSABI Health Hut initiative.
How are things up north with you, George, this month?
Wet, to put it mildly, and colder. Although it's we are feeling the cold now and again. Over the last week or so, it's been surprisingly mild and quite a lot of mists and fogs, which has made driving fun. But obviously for guys with cattle inside, that's not ideal, and bedding will be not lasting very long, I'd imagine, and they'll be keeping an eye out for pneumonias and things like that.
Yeah, we just brought our cattle in, probably getting on for 2.5-3 weeks ago now, sort of the end of October there, and the weather was still very mild, but we wanted to get them in before it gets too wet outside. There's nothing worse than bringing wet cattle into a warm shed. So likewise, keeping an eye out for pneumonia. But yeah, so far things looking good. And we had our scanning yesterday for our cattle, so that was one of the other reasons we needed everybody inside. So that went well. So that's always a relief to get those results. But yeah, it's very mild and wet with us in the Lothians as well. Thankful for a bit of rain, of course, after such a dry summer and autumn there. So as we head into winter, we're just hoping it doesn't get too wet. But
no, it's remarkable. You look at the fields and you see where there's still stock out, and how quickly we've gone from being very, very dry and everything looking remarkably well, to a bit of poaching and such like going on. Just how it's like flicking a switch really in some fields. It's amazing. I would say the winter crops, a bit like last year, are looking very well going into the winter. So that is one good thing. Oilseed rape is really flying, and the winter barley and the winter wheats, they've gotten a good start too.
Yeah, I would say same down in the Lothians, because everything went in good time and good ground conditions. So hopeful that a good winter with not too much rain will be coming up for us, but it's something you can't predict or control. So hoping for the best. But yeah, certainly a bit of colder weather would be welcome for those that have got livestock inside, just to sort of control the bugs a wee bit, I think.
Yeah. Since the last time we spoke, farmers who applied for FFIS will have found out if they've been successful or not, and by the time this goes out, they will have had to reply one way or another, whether they're accepting it or not. I suppose it's time then for them to get out and go and buy their items.
Yeah, once you clicked accept, if you were one of the people that was accepted, you had to go online and click accept within the 2 weeks. So once you did that, you then get the scheme guidance and sort of terms and conditions. So I've just advised anyone who's in that position now to make sure that they read through the terms and conditions properly, and that they're buying, what they said they were going to buy. Just keep an eye on the price and that sort of thing to make sure that you're meeting the scheme requirements. And if you've got any questions, obviously speak to your local department just to make sure before you go ahead if you're not quite sure.
Yeah, I think you were asked to confirm that you had downloaded a copy of the T's and C's and the offer letter.
That's
basically.
Right. Yeah. So just go through that carefully, and seek guidance from the department if you're unsure about anything before you buy it, because it's better to check before you go ahead and purchase something than find out later on that it's not meeting the requirements. Yeah. For some items, you also will need to do geotagged photographs as well. So worth figuring out how to do that before any deadlines looming for that as well. So check what the deadlines are. Check any sort of digital requirements as well. And if you're struggling with any of that sort of technology side of things, the local department or perhaps your local consultant will be able to help figure out how to do that for you.
And folk have got 9 months to put things in place.
Yeah.
I think it's human nature that there'll always be somebody that leaves it to the last minute. But our advice is, if you've given the go ahead, get on and get it done and get things put in place.
Yeah, there might be issues for supply for some items if there was any particular item that was very, very popular in your area. Just check with the supplier that you'd got the quotes from, that they're still able to deliver it for you as well. Just make sure in plenty of time, as you say, George, that you've covered all bases.
Yes, absolutely. And we're wearing through the year, and I'm not saying that because Christmas will just be around the corner, but there's a few things we need to make folk aware of. PSF, the deadline for it or getting work done will be the 31st of December. So really, it's just advising folk really that if you need to get a carbon audit done, you're going to have to get that booked, get someone in place pretty quick. And likewise with soils, and we've seen the last few years, the doors get closed for new soils, say around about the middle of December. So again, get your soils taken, and get them analysed in plenty time, certainly before the end of the year, or else you're going to miss out, basically.
Absolutely. I think some of the larger soil sampling companies are probably getting towards their limit of what they can physically do before the end of the year. If you've got some that you can take yourself, then great. But again, get them in the lab sooner rather than later, because they got a big backlog last year, right enough, George. So I think that's good advice.
Yeah, I think to be fair, I think we're seeing people maybe slightly sharper this year. They're only by a couple of weeks or so. And I think we'll be expecting to see a lot of soils come in over the next month or so.
Yeah, and it's unlikely that the PSF grant is going to be repeated again. So this is potentially the last chance for funding for these items for the foreseeable. So if you are kind of pinning some hopes on some funding for carbon audits and soil sampling, now is the time so you don't miss out.
Yes, and of course, why is it important to get your soils sampled? It's all part of the whole farm plan, and by 2028, everyone will be doing nutrient management plans as part of the whole farm plan, and every Region 1 field that receives fertiliser will be expected to have a soil analysis against it taken within the last 5 years.
Yeah, and there's some debate. A lot of clients phone me going, should I do the whole farm in one go, or should I do a fifth of the farm to get the PSF funding? I think at this point, it's whatever's practical. It's quite hard to divide your farm exactly into fifths,
Yes.
depending on field size. So I'm advising whatever's practical. It could be a big financial outlay if you decide to do GPS for the whole of Region 1 in one go. But if you're just doing routine sampling for, say, maybe grass fields, maybe doing the whole farm is more affordable.
Yeah.
Just sort of cost it out and make a decision. But as you say, by 2028, it's kind of, you need to be in a routine of either sampling the whole farm every 5 years or a fifth every year, whichever suits your business best.
And be aware of your allowance. That's really your starting point. And if you've got this debate going on in your head, you maybe haven't taken advantage of it much in the past. You've only maybe sampled the 2 or 3 fields that are going into barley or whatever. Be aware that you're going to need to have these fields sampled within the next couple of years. You can get it funded this year, provided you have a carbon audit in place, of course. And be aware of your allowance and see how far you can go with that, basically.
Yeah.
Take advantage of your allowance.
Yeah.
Now, as we approach the end of the year, we start to see farmers with their minds looking towards next year again, and the ploughs come out, particularly if there's a dry spell. And I totally understand where some folk come from that angle. They're looking at it from a point of view that they've maybe got a fair bit to do, a fine chance to get going. Up here, we speak about, particularly if it's heavier land, you're setting it up to the frost so that Mother Nature can do what she does basically on it and breaks it down to save the cultivator. So I can understand why people can do that. But with your biodiversity hat on, Mary Jane, should farmers maybe be thinking about leaving some of their stubbles later in the year?
Yeah, so I think we all accept that farmland birds have been in decline over the last, 50 years, probably, if you look at any of the data published, independently by other organisations. There's a clear downward trend of farmland birds, which I'm sure nobody wants to see. And one of the reasons for that, that is often touted in research, is the lack of winter food sources for birds. So a lot of farmers that have spring cropping have the option to leave the stubble over the winter before it goes into the spring crop. And that then provides obviously the stubble, but within that stubble there'll be chaff and spilt grain, that's maybe come off the back of the combine, smaller seeds that haven't gone through. And they provide a winter food source for birds like grey partridge, corn bunting, linnet, skylarks, sparrows, yellowhammers. All those sorts of birds will feed on that chaff over the winter. And as well as that, if it's not cultivated, you'll often get arable weeds coming in. And a lot of those weeds will provide a food source for birds, but also shelter for insects and potential food for other animals like brown hare that might be looking for a bit of green winter forage as well. So there is lots of benefits to leaving it for biodiversity, and just bear that in mind when you're thinking about cultivating. Could you leave it over winter just that little bit longer? Another alternative is maybe to leave corners or bits of wild bird seed. If you want to establish wild bird seed as part of the greening options for next year, perhaps, then make sure that they're left well into the next year. If you are moving them around, try and leave them in as long as possible, for the same reason that they provide cover, shelter, and a seed source. And I think particularly this year, certainly on the East Coast, George, we're both on the East Coast, so we've had a slightly milder summer than potentially the west side of Scotland, but certainly we've had extreme dry this year, and I think ground conditions are exceptionally good. So there has probably been lots of benefits to the soil over the harvest period, where we've not been having to drive heavy equipment over really waterlogged soil, causing any damage that you might want to try and rectify with the plough before the winter. So I think if possible, and if you feel your fields are in good condition and there's no desperate rush to get on and plough, I would advise that if you can leave it, the longer the better for these birds. And the other benefit, of course, is if we end up having an incredibly wet winter, which is potentially a risk after such a dry summer and autumn, is that ground cover obviously protects the soil from flooding and erosion, which, as we know, for some areas of the east coast of Scotland in particular, last year was catastrophic in some areas with winter flooding and early spring flooding, which decimated some fields. So if you've got any fields that you feel are maybe prone to flooding, that stubble cover, which then over winter will develop a sort of weed layer as well, could just help stabilize the soil a bit rather than having it as bare plough. There's the potential that's an added bonus as well.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Cause, how many times have we seen that we get absolute plump rain and, there's a cultivated field, it's got no cover on it whatsoever. And,
yeah,
swathes of soil end up running onto the roads and things like that. I've seen plenty of that in the past.
Yeah.
And
That's a disaster for any farmer. I think losing topsoil like that is fairly devastating, isn't it? And
soil nutrients and everything, isn't it?
And the other risk is if we get a big dump of snow followed by a very mild period, you can have a sudden melt, and that causes similar issues. The snow almost cleaves the soil off with it as it melts and leaves the field. So it's not just rain that we need to worry about. It's big dumps of snow, which is a potential. I think because with the extremes of weather we're seeing, anything you can do to build your resilience for your farm, and I think most of us would agree that starts with the soil. Just a bit of stability, a bit of resilience in the soil there for soil health, but for biodiversity as well. I think that's an all-round win as far as I'm concerned, George.
Yeah, you're just telling folk just to be a bit more patient.
Yeah, and there will be lots of situations where it isn't practical for whatever reason. It doesn't suit the system. But if there are fields that are, prone to flooding, or you're not as urgent to get on and get it ploughed for the winter, maybe it's an easier soil to work in the spring, then maybe try with those fields initially if you don't want to leave the whole lot of ploughing till the spring.
And we're also coming to the time of year that we're starting to see more and more events. You can check out the FFIS websites, for instance, and there's a whole string of events through November, December, and there'll be into the new year as well. We've got a lot of Irene Scott, and up here we've got Christmas Classic and such like. There's a lot of events happening. You were recently at one at Easter Howgate.
Yep, that's right. The SAC Edinburgh office is now on the Easter Howgate farm, which is nice. So we're in where all the action's happening on the SRUC farm, and we hosted Farm Strong last week for a joint event, which was great to see. I think there was about 40 odd farmers came on to have a bit of a tour of Easter Howgate and hear from Bruce Wiper, the stockman here. So that was fantastic to hear of all the improvements he's made to the herd since he's been here. So it was an educational day, but it was also focusing on, a lot of the aspects to Farm Strong, one of which is, to keep learning. But another one is just to connect with people. And I think as we get towards winter, it can be a bit of a slog outside, especially when it's wet, cold, muddy weather, and darker nights. I think it is a good opportunity to get off farm, either for the day, like the Farm Strong event, or there's lots of evening meetings coming up. I know Farm Strong are doing some, so check their website out. FAS, as you mentioned, are doing some, but a lot of us are also involved with local agricultural discussion societies as well. I do the Peebles one. George, who's the producer on this show, he does the Kelso one. So there's lots of them. I think particularly the East Coast seems to have quite a lot of the discussion societies. So you can have a Google and see if there's one in your area. They do lots of winter evening meetings, which are quite good to just get out and connect with others, learn something new, and just helps beat the winter blues a wee bit.
Yeah, I think there's still a few left up here, and certainly there seems to be more FAS Connect groups, which, well, I'm certainly involved with a couple of them. Mary Jane, I think, are you?
I'm not, but in our office we have a FAS Connect beef group as well. So that's run by my colleague Craig Bothwell. So I think most SAC offices will have a FAS Connect group, which is sort of a group for a focused group of people, either on a topic like beef, sheep, arable, or on a particular regional area. So yeah, get in touch with your local advisor or have a look on the FAS website to find out where a local FAS Connect might be.
Absolutely.
When you've been at the local show, or even the mart, you might have come across a RSABI Health Hut. We're delighted today to be joined by Rebecca Mackie, who's a Health Hut coordinator with RSABI, and also Irene Scott, who's one of the RSABI Health Hut nurses, to tell us all about the initiative.
So we're talking today about Men's Health Month. You maybe heard about Movember as a sort of charity way to highlight some of the men's health issues. And we thought that'd be a great time to talk about the RSABI Health Hut. So Irene, can you start by telling us about the idea behind the Health Hut initiative with RSABI, please?
Yeah, so I work 4 days a week in a general practice in Fife, supporting patients with long-term conditions. But I've got an agricultural background because I was born and bred on a mixed arable farm in Perthshire, but my husband's also an arable farmer, so I'm well aware of all the stresses that farmers are under today. So the combination of the Health Hut is just a combination of two of my passions, nursing and farming, all rolled into one.
Yeah, fantastic. And Rebecca, can you tell us a bit about your background with RSABI?
Yes, well, I've worked for RSABI for a couple of years now, but prior to that, I did work on farms myself. I was self-employed, mostly milking cows and things for a lot of years. And now I'm married to a beef and arable farmer just outside Perth. So I see the need of the Health Hut too, because my husband, like most farmers, you have to drag him, make him go to the doctors. I've now got a son that's come into the farm, and it's much the same. So it's very important to us all, really.
Fantastic. So Irene, if you can tell us kind of the sort of checks that you can do on the Health Hut. So farmers are obviously walking past the stand wondering what you're doing. And I guess there's that hesitancy from, farmers, particularly males, that of going to the doctor, you've identified that that's a thing. If they're walking past the stand at the shows or whatever, they might feel a little bit nervous about going in to speak to you as well. What sort of checks can you do on the Health Hut?
So at the moment, we do blood pressure checks, but alongside that, we all have a health promotion. So one that has been very interesting is that we have a roll of white Baler twine sitting on our table, and it's got a sign on it saying this Baler twine could save your life. And a lot of people come over and say, how can a bit of Baler twine? We've had many suggestions of how this Baler twine can save your life. But what it does is we measure the person's height. We cut the bit of Baler twine, we cut it, double it up, and it should fit round your waist. Now, if it should meet in the middle, if it doesn't, then that's showing us that you're carrying some visceral fat, which can increase your cardiovascular risk of a heart attack or stroke occurring. So we tend to always have something that catches as eye-catching. We've also had a lot of energy drinks on our table. So with the sugar lumps, just measuring out the sugar content of the drinks. We're hoping to also calculate cholesterol and HbA1cs, which is your average blood sugars over the last 3 months, to detect early signs of diabetes. So there is, we do initially just do blood pressures, but that can highlight so many things. So it is all good. And once farmers sit down and we monitor their blood pressure, there is always a bit of chat afterwards. And there's so many people that do open up about any health concerns that they have when they're sitting down. They're at a different level to everyone that's sort of walking about. So we can have some quite private conversations about different aspects of health, and it's a good chance. We're finding it's both physical and mental health that people want to talk about. So it's absolutely fantastic.
I think it must be very difficult because I'm an age, and if I've got something wrong with me, you've always got this, I'll be all right tomorrow, it'll get better. You don't want to ask for help, and there's almost a fear of embarrassment. It's just kind of embarrassment asking somebody for help sort of thing. It's a big barrier that you're having to break down there. You're finding that farmers are quite receptive?
Initially they weren't, but I think, we've been running the Health Hut now for over 2 years, and I think it's now through awareness, of what we're doing, I think people are more open to that now. It's just incredible that, even just someone walking past the stand, we just say hello, and then they'll have a wee bit of a blether. You can ask, if you're in the market, what's the trade like? Are you buying? Are you selling? You just start that conversation, and then they obviously they know that. All the Health Hut staff have an agricultural background, so we are aware of the stresses, everything involved in agriculture. So, we have an understanding that they will open up to us. And I think I suppose, the RSABI logo is keep talking. We need to open up. I remember one instance, there was a chap who had 2 very young kids. They must have been about under 3. And he kept walking past. And we just had a bit of a chat with him. And then he would go away, and then he would come back, and then he would get a pen for the kids. And this went all an afternoon. And then eventually the chair that we were doing the blood pressure was empty. And he sat down, he says, right, let's check my blood pressure. And he talked about something else that was completely irrelevant, but we gave him that chance and that space to open up. So it is really good.
No, I think it's fantastic what you're doing. We're not good. Men are not good at opening up, even to our nearest and dearest. No, it's really good what you're doing. Everybody knows stories as folk they've just left things too late. They've let things linger. And no, like I said, it's fantastic what you're doing.
Thank you.
Is there things that you can pick up, Irene, so we mentioned that blood pressure is the main thing that you do. So from a medical point of view, what can that sort of highlight? So say someone's got high blood pressure, what sort of things would that highlight to you? And then what would the next steps, your advice be for that person?
So ultimately, if you have high blood pressure, you're more at risk of developing a heart attack or a stroke, a cardiovascular event. Okay, so that pressure, if it's high, it's going to be constantly high, and your heart's a muscle. So with having a high pressure inside your heart, it's going to get damaged, which then could lead to a heart attack or stroke. So if someone is sitting down, they've got high blood pressure, we look at their lifestyle, because there's lifestyle measures that they could do to prevent, to help reduce their blood pressure. So, reducing salt intake, alcohol intake. We're noticing that a lot of people are reducing their exercise because they're using quad bikes more. So they're not getting that good cardiovascular, when they way to gather the hills, it's on a quad bike. So instead of walking, so they're not getting the cardiovascular, or they're sitting on a tractor all day. So we talk about the different things. Obviously, diet is important. Smoking is another risk associated with high blood pressure. So we talk about them, we highlight what they could do, because obviously all of them are not going to be pertinent to people. So we individualise, put the patient or the farmer at the centre. And we set wee little goals, so whether it's to ditch the quad bike, that's a famous phrase for me, ditch the quad bike for a week or so. We would encourage them to come back to the Health Hut to get their blood pressure checked in about a month's time. And if it's still high, after they've obviously made these changes, if it's still high, then we signpost them to their GP. We have had a couple of cases where it's been very, very high that we've said, and they've had some symptoms as in, blood vision, headaches, then we signpost them to, they have to get attention there and then. So we've had a couple of instances like that.
And that's, just shows how vital it is, because I'm guessing people that have symptoms, as you said, George, maybe ignore them for a little while because, they've got other priorities or they're a bit embarrassed about it. But there presumably is people walking around with high blood pressure and they've absolutely no idea. So just walking past your hut and getting it checked and then finding out, oh gosh, I could be at risk of these things. That's really important.
I think, like you're saying, there's occasionally somebody who's not feeling very well anyway, but they've just, like you're saying, George, they didn't want to go to their doctors, and then they see us and they think, oh, well, seeing as you're here, I've not been feeling very well lately. And, it's turned out, one chap I'm thinking of in particular, turned out he had type 2 diabetes, but he didn't realise it. So, it does make people come forward a little bit.
And I think we also find that it's, what amazes me is now that people are aware of what their blood pressure should be. So we've had lots of chat, people know and they're interested in their blood pressure, which is a huge step forward from 2 years ago. It was initially quite a struggle to get people to sit down, but now we're recognised. Oh, the Health Hut's here, what you're doing today, and they come over. And I think in amongst the farming communities, they like to compare their blood pressures. So if we've got a group, whether it's auctioneers, whether it's staff from the cafe, a group of friends, they'll all get their blood pressures checked, and then you see them, oh, what's your readings, what's your numbers? And I think it's a bit of a competition, but it's not, because we don't want high blood pressures. But it's, just getting them talking about and knowing what their numbers are, because it's so important. And obviously, there's people there that have got, maybe their dad's had a heart attack, then they're at risk as well. So it's just getting that information over to people.
Yeah. Are there really easy wins out there? Because we don't help ourselves sometimes. You go to an agricultural event and you pick up, it's food you can hold in your hands. It can be a burger, it can be sausage rolls. You go to football or rugby, the food of choice, it's a pie, these kind of foods. What should we really be thinking about eating? Is there easy wins?
we have to be careful with ultra processed foods. The availability of these. It's not just a case of, oh, we'll grab a pie, we'll grab that. Holidays and heydays, like the agricultural shows, it's acceptable. Holidays and heydays, that's fine. But generally, we have to be careful with ultra processed foods. There's so many bad things in them that are addictive. I would also say, try and be prepared. I know it's very hard, but try and be, I'm just thinking about, my husband's piece. Get a bit of fruit in there, get, some nuts, or, that are easy, because my husband doesn't even stop for a break when he's combining. So it's, things that are easy grabs, a little bowl of nuts, a little container of nuts, some oatcakes, a piece of fruit. All these things are all good. It is, with just a good balanced diet, and don't add salt.
I think that's it, though. There's so many things out there to tempt us, isn't it? And being prepared, that's excellent advice, just so that if you're going into the market every week, for example, bring a healthier snack, and maybe admit that you're going to have the lunch, but have a healthier snack with you is good advice. And
just makes a healthier choice, instead of, maybe cut down on the potatoes and have more veg. That's a simple thing as well, with your whatever you're having.
Yeah. And maybe turning the conversation a wee bit more, I'm serious, getting below the waistline. Appreciate it's a podcast and such like. There's things there that men need to think about as well.
Mm-hmm. We've done, I think it was last November, we did prostate awareness. So we had a day at one of the rugby autumn tests. So that was we took our trailer over to Murrayfield. We were raising awareness of prostate cancer. I know it's not, there's other things as well, but obviously it was quite a topical subject, just with Chris Hoy being diagnosed then. And I think it is important. And I wrote I wrote an article for the Scottish Farmer, and we had feedback that one chap had read it. He had recognised and could relate to some of the symptoms of prostate cancer, and he phoned his GP that day, and he got assessed and detected early prostate cancer. So the effect of that is still, it really makes me feel that I've made such a difference to his life, as well as his family's life and his business, of course. We do, we run these campaigns as well, but it is important to seek, if you've got any doubt, have that conversation, get an early diagnosis. If it's nothing, it's nothing. We would rather it was nothing in general practice. But if you've got any serious, thoughts, get in touch with your GP.
And over the course of your career, Irene, do you think there's a greater awareness now of things like prostate and testicular cancer than there was when you first started out nursing? And do you think campaigns like what you're doing is making a difference?
Yes, I think in any campaign, it's tragic that we've got to have someone in, the public eye being diagnosed for all this chat to happen. But, that legacy is incredible. It's just making people aware. What is it? 1 in 2 are going to get people are going to get cancer. So it's just getting aware of the symptoms, and getting the early diagnosis. So we are making a difference. We get the feedback. That's only the way, if we find out that we, have that effect if people feedback to us. We've got an email address that people can just drop an email, just say, well, I visited a health hut, so and so, and this is, they could tell a bit of their story. So we are making a difference.
Rebecca, you had some information on some stats on the impact of the health huts.
Yeah, well, I just our basic stats. We've this year so far we've taken over 1,500 blood pressures.
Wow.
We usually find out that 1 in 3 is raised, which I think is quite normal actually. But we've had 71 outings this year, so it's gone up hugely. Last year we had 39 outings with the Health Hut. So that's across the country from Lanark, Ayrshire, Dingwall, can't think where else we've been up north, Fort William, Orkney, as well as round about Aberdeenshire. So we're all over the country and just growing and growing. And we've got an incredible bunch of nurses on board that have all come forward themselves. And like Irene said, all have a farming connection, which I think is the key to having a rapport with people. And it's just gone from strength to strength. It's just great.
I think it's a really accessible way for people to get these basic checks as well. And, I'm lucky in my area that it's very easy to get a GP appointment, but some areas it might not be so easy. And, for something that somebody might perceive as minor, whilst it might have big implications, they might think, oh, I can't get hold of the doctor's surgery this morning, I'll just put it off and put it off. But you being out there and visual, in a setting that they're not necessarily thinking about it, but then going, oh, hang on, I tried to make that appointment, maybe, and they can just walk in. I think that's what's so appealing about it, is that people can just walk in without an appointment and it just gets them checked then and there.
Yeah. And then if they've spoken to one of our nurses, it gives them the push to go back to their GP and maybe try a bit harder to get that appointment. And we do, if we're really worried about somebody, we do have a little letter we can hand out and with the blood pressure readings that the nurses have taken, and they'll take it to their GP. And I think that helps too.
And I think I also I remember up at the trial up at A&M Thainston, there was regular people, at the market, and they were, if they had this chap had high blood pressure and he wasn't doing anything about it, and he was coming back month. I think it was about the third month he came back and says, look, you really need to phone your GP. And the next time I saw him that day, he's on the mobile phone, was up to the ear. I was like, I'm on the phone to the GP, and it was like, thank goodness, So I think there's that a bit of continuity that, we're there, we're seen on a monthly basis, that you can kind of silently check up on patients or people and farmers, because you're seeing them regularly. Although it does, I remember being at a social event and someone came up to me and says, "Oh, my blood pressure," and it was just like, okay, yes, let's hear your story. I'm at a social event here, but it's good. Again, it's people talking about their blood pressure.
I guess you get that a lot with the medical profession, isn't it? People feel the need to overshare and tell you their story. But as you say, that's what you want. It's opening up that conversation. So our sort of take-home messages then, what would you say to any farmer that's listening and thinks, oh, gosh, I maybe need to get that checked? What would your advice be?
If you see a health hut, come and speak to one of the team. We can signpost you to various places, a lot of charities that we can signpost you to. Also, don't be frightened, because it's better to find out, any early detection is so much better than just leaving it. I think you've got to think, you've got your business, you've got your family to think about as well. It's not just you. So I think get that checkup. Come and speak to one of the Health Hut team. Contact us via the email. And then we can advise you. But consider the GP appointment as well.
And we'll put a link to your email address and website and things in the show notes. But for anyone that's concerned about anything and wanting, or maybe no concerns, but wanting to check some of the symptoms, where's the best place to go for that? The NHS websites, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I'd say NHS Inform. You've got you can search for different health conditions there. So that would probably be the best bet. I mean, certainly for, there's specific charities. I don't want to list them all because there's lots of them, but yeah, certainly the sort of more commonly known ones, I'm thinking Diabetes UK or the Chest, Heart and Stroke websites as well. So there's lots of things. There's lots out there.
We also guide people towards any of the other help that RSABI can do, your mental health or practical help as well, and financial help and things that we've got.
And do you find, Rebecca, that people are coming to you having been to the Health Hut first, and they've kind of signposted them for sort of mental health issues as well? Are you finding that people are following through?
Well, it's hard to know who follows through because it's all confidential, but people, it is surprising what people then start speaking about once, like Irene said, once they're sitting having the blood pressure taken. We often end up giving them a RSABI card with our helpline number if we think somebody's, needing to be steered towards other help that we've got available. So
yeah. Well, it's fantastic, and you guys are doing great work, and it sounds like it's very rewarding for you both as well to be out in that farming community.
It's quite deep fun a lot of the time, a lot of chat and crack.
The banter's good.
Yeah. I think farmers are a different breed of patient, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I know. It was just like one of my work colleagues said, this has probably been so successful because you understand about agriculture, because she says, if I went to a market and I was doing all blood pressures, it wouldn't be well received because she doesn't know. And I think that is so important. We can talk their talk sometimes.
That's fantastic. Thank you both for joining us today. And as I say, all the information will be in the show notes for anyone who wants to find out where you'll be next.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Rural Roundup. We'll see you back here on the 17th of December with our next episode. This episode was hosted by George Chalmers and Mary Jane Lawrie, and also featured our guests, Rebecca Mackie and Irene Scott. This show was produced by George Gawley and edited by Cameron Waugh.
The Farm Advisory Service Podcast. Audio advice on livestock, crops and soils, environment, rural business, and more. Brought to you in association with the Scottish Government.